Bad news. Bad news. This is the day the Avengers died. Let's talk about it. Hello, true believers. Welcome to Multiverse. So, sadly, if you are a fan of the Marvel Avengers game, that game will no longer be supported. So, sadly, the live service Avengers game is officially dead. The game, you will still be able to play the game, but you will not be able to purchase the game anymore, and there will not be any more new updates, there will not be any more new characters, but you should still be able to play the game. So if you already own the Marvel Avengers game, don't worry, you will still be able to play your game. And if somehow you did not play the Avengers game for whatever reason, and you don't want to miss out, buy the game right now. Because sadly, at some point, you will no longer be able to purchase the game. Let's take a look at the article. I'm using the article from the Escapist for this video, but if you want to look at other articles, you can just search a Marvel Avengers game, or Marvel Avengers game dead, or Marvel Avengers game no longer supported. There's plenty of articles out there talking about this right now. So again, they will no longer support the Avengers game, but they are not shutting down the game. So if you have the game already, you should still be able to play it. There should be a final update, update 2.8 on March 31st. So that will be the final update for the game. So again, the game will not shut down, but they will stop supporting the game. Support should stop officially September 30th, but even after support ends, you will still be able to play the game, and you will still be able to play the game even in multiplayer mode. Although Crystal Dynamics cannot guarantee how long this will last. Basically, they're saying something along the lines that they can't guarantee that this will remain the case forever. So at least in the short term, you will still be able to play the game and you will still be able to play multiplayer. How long will that last? We don't know at this point. As for the patch, the update 2.8, basically it will be a final balance to the game. They will remove the cosmetic marketplace. Basically, the marketplace will be shut down, so you will no longer be able to purchase costumes, credits, and all that stuff. But also, don't spend money on the game anymore. And if you have any credits left, don't go out and spend your credits. You will be compensated for your credits. I'll explain that in just a bit. And all the costumes will become available for free to everyone. Basically, all the content that you have to pay for right now will be accessible to everyone completely for free. So don't spend a single red cent on the game anymore. You don't need to. Everything will be made available for free, which should have been probably the case to begin with. And if you do not play on PlayStation, whether PS4 or PS5, sadly the bad news is that the Spider-Man character will remain exclusive to the PlayStation. So sadly, if you play on Xbox, if you play on PC, you won't be able to play Spider-Man. It's sad, but that's how it is. As for the credits themselves, if you have any credits remaining, whatever credits you have will be replaced with in-game resources. So here you can see a chart showing you how much resources you will get for the amount of credits you have. So if you have any credits left, don't waste them thinking that you have to spend those credits before the game is gone or something. Keep your credits, you will be compensated for those. So eventually the game will be removed from the digital store. The only way you are going to be able to get the game at that point will be to get an actual physical copy. But if you were meaning to try out the game at some point, you're going to have to buy it now before it's gone from the store. And again, if you already own the game, you will still be able to play the game. The only thing is, we do not know when they will completely shut down the game. So if you do enjoy playing the Avengers game, play it now while you can. Sadly, no one can really say this game is a surprise. The only real surprise is that it lasted this long. This game probably should have been shut down quite some time ago. But we'll give them some credits. They did try to keep the game around, although some of their decisions were very questionable at best, especially when they slowed down the leveling process, only then to later on sell some boost that would allow you to be able to level up faster. That pretty much illustrates one of the many things that was very, very wrong with this game. Now, it's not something that we've never seen before. There's plenty of games out there who will put obstacles in your way so that you don't progress faster, or so that you cannot progress, and make it so that you have to spend some actual cash in order to be able to either progress faster or to be able to progress at all. Now, games have to be monetized, and the devs have to make money in order to be able to keep the studio running. But sometimes some of the solutions to try to monetize content, not only the best solution, especially in the case of a game like Avengers, which was already struggling to begin with, putting a roadblock to keep people from leveling up faster, and then selling them the boost to be able to level up faster again, not really the best idea with a game that was in trouble like the Avengers game was. And sadly, the game has been in trouble pretty much since day one. A lot of the troubles they had came from bad decisions. And some of those bad decisions were pretty much made from day one. Although in some cases, it's kind of hard to tell which decisions were Crystal Dynamics' fault and which decisions were Marvel themselves. Although there's a few decisions, like the decisions to center the game around the character of Miss Marvel, we do know that that came straight from Marvel. Marvel wanted the game to be centered around Miss Marvel. They were trying very hard, and they're still trying very hard to push that character. Even though, as I'm recording this, the character doesn't have an ongoing series right now. It has like a two-issue miniseries that is linked with the current event. But the character, Miss Marvel, is not a popular character, not by any stretch of the imagination. But they've been trying really, really hard to make that character popular, despite the audience having no interest in that character. And sadly, part of the reasons for pushing that character so much, for quite some time, Marvel has been trying to push diversity in the comics and in pretty much all the media. We see it in the movies also right now. But also, people have often have a vested self-interest in certain things. For example, let's imagine that you are the creator of Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, and let's say that at the head of Marvel, or one of the people at the head of Marvel. Well, if you do push Kamala Khan into video games, into movies, into TV shows, that means that you will get a big fat check in return for creating the character. So sadly, sometimes people will do that for ideological reasons. In this case, they're probably trying to push diversity. But sometimes people in positions of power will get a big fat check if Marvel pushes certain characters. So in some cases, they might go as far as to use a diversity to push their own self-interest. It's sad, but it happens, and it happens all the time, especially in comics. And it's nothing new. It's something we've been seeing for quite some time now. For example, like I see a lot of people who complain that Marvel jumped over 40 years of history to start doing a series like Miss Marvel, or to try to push Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel. But it's been like that for quite some time. Even before that, like when Marvel decided to make the second Captain America movie, The Winter Soldier, they did just that. They jumped over 40 years of history to go straight for the Winter Soldiers. Like they could have done the Serpent Society. They could have done a half a dozen movies with the evil Red Skull, with Red Skull also getting into suspended animation, waking up in the present, and then still fighting his arch nemesis, Captain America. But they did not do that. And a lot of the people that complain now that Marvel jumped over 40 years of history were not complaining back then. Back then, they were very happy to see the Winter Soldiers as a film because that was a storyline they enjoyed. But at the time, Marvel did the very same thing. They pushed the storylines that would benefit the people in power at Marvel right then, or who were at Marvel at the time, who could benefit from those storylines. Like, if Marvel made a movie about Captain America from a storyline from the 80s, the current people at Marvel would not benefit from that. But if they made, at the time, the Winter Soldiers was a fairly recent storyline, and the people in positions of power at Marvel were somewhat involved in that storyline in the comics, and odds are they were probably benefiting from that, or some of their colleagues or friends were benefiting from that. So pushing for the Winter Soldiers to be the second Captain America movie, I guarantee you a lot of self-interest were behind that decision. And sadly, the same was true with Marvel's Avengers and making the game centered around Kamala Khan. That was the very first mistake they made, and it did cripple the game from day one. A good comparison, I guess, would be the cartoon Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes. They went with the classic Avengers, Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, and they built the TV series around those characters. Again, we have to remember that Avengers for a while was the hottest property out there. It was the hottest movie franchise out there. and the TV show did benefit from that. And the distributor did went even one step further. The distributor did what is often considered as an evil sin. They passed the episodes out of order. Very often, TV shows, when the distributor decides to broadcast the TV shows, they don't necessarily follow the order that the episodes were made. An example of that would be Firefly. For some reason, the distributor, when they saw the Firefly series, they decided not to air the first episode first, for a whole bunch of reasons. And I can't really blame them. The first episode looked not very good, and it looked really, really cheap. For the Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes cartoon, it actually was a great decision. What they ended up doing is that they ended up with the one episode that was focusing on Iron Man. At the time, the Avengers was getting to be a popular brand, but Iron Man was the center of the Marvel Cinematic Universe at the time. Iron Man is the character that started the whole thing, and it was by far the most popular character of the MCU at the time. So it made a lot of business sense to start with an episode that centered on Iron Man. So they used the uber popularity of Iron Man at the time to launch the TV show. And here the game did pretty much the opposite. They built the game around Miss Marvel, and Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk. These were just side characters in the Miss Marvel storyline. Another concern was the character design. As soon as we saw the early trailers, holy crap, were those designs not good. They did not follow the comic design. They did not follow the Marvel Cinematic Universe design. They tried to do something sort of in between, and it was an epic fail. It was a mistake. They decided not to use the classic design, and even in the characters, like you can see, the characters don't look very heroic. They don't even have heroic proportions. Like they have those tiny legs somehow for athletic superhumans. Kind of strange to see. Like it's not like long legs don't exist in real life. And look at most Olympic athletes. A lot of them will be tall, built, with long legs because that's what athletes need to perform. Sadly, there seems to be this belief that superheroes have to be made ordinary so that people can identify with them somehow, which is completely missing the point. So they did not really follow the classic designs, the classic comic designs, but also I guess for licensing issues, they could not really recreate the Marvel movie designs. Although they did add the Marvel movie costumes afterwards, so I'm not sure what changed. So they did something that kind of looked like the movie costumes, but not really. So the characters ended up being a cheap knockoff of the Marvel cinematic characters. And also the same for the actors. Obviously, the characters did not really look like the actors. In animation, there's this phenomenon called the Uncanny Valley. And here, I think the characters looking realistic, but not really looking like the characters, like the actors. That kind of pushed the Uncanny Valley effect into maximum overdrive. So it created a weird effect that made the design really not work at all. Although again on that front, it's kind of hard to know. Like, is it the designers from Crystal Dynamics that made the wrong decision? Is it the heads at Crystal Dynamics that pushed that creative decision on the designers? Is it Marvel who was pushing for that creative decision? We don't really know. So in that front, it's kind of hard to know if should we blame Marvel, should we blame Crystal Dynamics, should we blame the design team themselves? There's no real way to know for sure at this point. Maybe someday, many years from now, one of the devs will write a blog exposing everything that happened behind the scene. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see for that. Another of the issues, sadly, is that when the game launched, there was a lot of issues, a lot of bugs. I think I showed one or two in my playthrough, and people were not too happy about that. Although even during the beta stage, people were not too happy. So the game really did start from the wrong foot right from the start. For the gameplay, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. It was a bit clunky, especially the way the characters were moving. Flying was a bit of a struggle. It may be because I'm used to playing DC Universe Online. In DC Universe Online, flying is very smooth. It's a very smooth experience. But in Marvel's Avengers, Flying was very clunky somehow, and also there was two flight mode. Like when you would fly basically regularly, but then when you would try to fly a bit faster, it would turn into another game where you had a hard time controlling the character, and you were trying to shoot the obstacles in front of you or the enemies in front of you. It was like the games had a bipolar disorder, and there was like two different games within the same game. Although we do know that different parts of the games were made by different teams, so that's probably what happened here. Also, sadly, when you would use, let's say, a character like the Hulk, using the Hulk, you would want to feel powerful. And the Hulk there was some really nice combos you could do. You could grab the rocks from the ground and throw them. You could punch the ground and punch enemies. You could grab enemies. But you did not feel really powerful. Like when you have to punch, when you're the Hulk and you have to punch a simple guy 23 times to knock him out, it doesn't make you feel very powerful. And sadly, part of the appeal of those games are these are supposed to be power fantasies. Superheroes are supposed to be power fantasies. So are video games. And you would think that a video game with superheroes would be the ultimate power fantasy, but here it was pretty much the opposite. It was the weaker fantasy. Like even though you were playing as the Hulk and you should have been the strongest one there is, you ended up feeling very weak, and it did not make for a very fun experience. If you're wondering why I stopped covering the game very quickly, it was because of that. I did not have a lot of fun playing the game. If I had fun playing the game, I would have made videos after videos after videos. An example of that is quite simple, DC Universe Online. I love playing that game. I have a lot of fun playing the game. And I have so much fun playing the game that I even have fun making videos about the game. So if I had fun playing the Avengers game, I would have kept on making videos about it, but it was too much of a struggle that at some point it wasn't really worth it. Sadly, playing as Captain America throwing his shield, playing as Thor throwing his hammer, that should have been a really fun experience, but somehow it was kind of sort of fun. I remember having some fun throwing a Thor's hammer around. I had some fun playing Captain America's shield sometimes, but the overall experience wasn't very satisfying. So I pretty much gave up on the game after a while. I tried to make a bit of a comeback when the Spider-Man character was added to the game, but again, the gameplay was too clunky. Controlling Spider-Man was way too clunky. I really didn't have fun. And they tried to make this a live service game. The idea was to add new characters, to add new content. At first, they were planning to charge, I think it was $10 per character. Like, so they would add a new character, people would pay $10 and be able to play those characters. Although at some point they did make some changes where they said that you could play the characters, but if you wanted to level up the characters to the maximum, then you had to pay $10. And in the end, they ended up pretty much giving away those characters because in the state the game was in, there's no way people would have paid for those. And of course, again, one more bad decision. The first character they added was Kate Bishop. They did give us Hawkeye afterwards, but you would have thought that they would have given us Hawkeye first. But again, sadly, that is an example of the current state of Marvel. They are trying to push characters on people that people don't care about. But then they gave us Hawkeye afterwards, and even with Hawkeye, like somehow it was too much to ask to have Hawkeye in his classic purple costume. I understand that a lot of people don't seem to like that purple costume, but it is part of Hawkeye's personality. It is part of his showmanship. Hawkeye comes from the circus. That is where he learned his craft. But then again, in the game, they pretty much modeled him after the MCU version, and the MCU version was modeled a lot on the Ultimates version. But a lot of Hawkeye fans are fans of the classic version, of the circus Hawkeye version, of the version with the purple costume. So how hard would it have been to give us the purple costume as soon as we got the Hawkeye character added to the game? Sadly, it took a while for us to get that costume, but even then, within the context of how the designer made and how the characters look, the costume didn't look very good anyway. I could keep on rambling and rambling and rambling, but in short, a lot of bad decisions were made even before they started working on the game itself, and sadly, it only snowballed from there. So sadly, this is pretty much how they took the hottest property out there at the time, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Avengers, and they were able to make a video game that should have been a home run. It should have been a hit. The popularity of the Marvel Universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Avengers, was at an all-time high, and somehow they were able to make an epic fail of a game. I guess we could try to tell ourselves that, oh well, maybe they'll make another game that will be much better than the Avengers game. Sadly, we still have people in the same positions of powers. We still have the same people making the decisions, and those people will probably cripple those future games the same way they did cripple the Marvel Avengers game from the start. So yes, they could make another game with another developer and hope that things will be better. But as long as you have the same people in positions of power making the decisions, all we can really do is expect history to repeat itself, which sadly does not look very good for any future Marvel games. There is a Daybreak. We're supposed to make a Marvel MMO, and we could see a lot of the bad decisions also already being made before the game was even made. I made a short video about that some time ago, although I probably should have shown some of the designs. We had seen some of the design work that had been put into the game, and sadly, right from the start, we could see a lot of, again, once more, a lot of the very poor, bad decisions that were made at the very start of the process of even starting to make the game, if it makes any sense. So sadly, with the current people in charge at Marvel, I wouldn't expect a good Marvel game anytime soon. Sadly, we see the poor decisions they're making with the movies, we see the poor decisions they're making with the comics, and sadly, they're making poor decisions when it comes to the video game as well. So I wouldn't expect a good Marvel game anytime soon, but I hope against hope that I'm wrong. I hope that we will get a Marvel MMO game that will be awesome. But even a foolish fool like me understands that that's a big ask. That's a lot to ask for. So we're going to hope that we will get a good Marvel game in the future. Sadly, under the current conditions, that doesn't look very likely. We shall see.